present Genius, the Thought Police Police. Here is your host, Dave Gorman.
Hello, I'm Dave Gorman, and welcome to Genius, the show all about your ideas. Every week, a celebrity guest and I discuss a variety of ideas sent to us by you, the Radio 4 listeners. Ideas that run the full gamut from gadgets and gizmos to policies, plots and plans. Team Genius receive thousands of ideas and we read them all, a process that can induce some kind of mania. When you find yourself looking at a blueprint for a hot air baboon and calling the RSPCA not to complain, but to see if it's a workable scheme, you know you spent too long at the Genius Ideas coalface. For those who are interested, it isn't. And nor are panda cars. While those ideas were rejected at an early stage, several ideas have survived this far. Whether they are genius or not is not up to me. That's down to the judgment of my guest, and what a guest we have for you this evening. Once upon a time, while discussing this evening's guest with my grandfather, he said to me, "If you look up genius in the dictionary, you'll see a picture of her face." What does that tell you, ladies and gentlemen? Well, it tells you that my grandma had, once again, been using the dictionary as a scrapbook. But it also tells you that in my grandma's celebrity dictionary scrapbook, this person is synonymous with genius. Ladies and gentlemen, Carol Vorderman. Now, you are the nation's favourite genius, I'm sure. Do you have any genius ideas to share with us this evening?
I have one particular one. This is all about cars and driving on the motorway, and I've called it the cruising car train. OK, so we build an extra lane on the motorway, we computerise it so that you would set your cruise control, come on at a certain junction, and there'd be 200 yards in between each car. Okay. Everybody would be set at 70 miles an hour. You'd be there at the top of the slip road, just like on a ski slope, see? And then it would bring you in at a certain moment. And then you sit there, you wouldn't have to steer or anything. You just cruise along all the way from London to Leeds, 70 miles an hour, have a little kip, safe as houses. And then when you wanted to come off at the next junction, you just flick a little switch and then you go. I think that's genius. And I'd pay for that.
I think it's genius, and I think you should pay for it. We know that you're a genius. Let's see if there are any other geniuses present tonight. We'll hear a few ideas, Carol, and you can decide which, if any, are genius. Please bear in mind that at the end of the day, one lucky genius could be taking home the Genius Trophy. Yeah, the size of it always surprises people. You'd be amazed at the craftsmanship here, you really would. If you look at this trophy with a magnifying glass, then you'll see it. So, let's get on with the show and hear our first idea, which comes from Matt Wood from Nottingham.
Dear Genius, my idea addresses the world's greatest problem, land usage. My genius solution, a rotating room. You could, for example, put the kitchen on the floor, the lounge on the ceiling, the bedroom on one wall, the bathroom on the opposite wall, leaving you with two spare walls for a dining room, a home cinema, or whatever you fancy. One easy press of a button on the remote control causes the entire room to rotate around you, moving your chosen room to the floor. You could fit hundreds more people in these space-saving, economical homes, maximising the land usage and passing the savings on to the customer.
OK, I can see several flaws in the idea immediately. Most of them also ceilings. I thank you. What do you think? What's your first impression?
Well, my first impression is I like this laterally thought through this, and I like that. Because I haven't often been in a boat, but everything in a boat has two or more uses, you see.
Yes.
So you'd have a seat that folds out and does all of that kind of thing. I like this idea. I like the idea of using things for more than one purpose, particularly a floor or a ceiling. Mm-hmm. What a waste of space that is.
But at the same time, I've been in a boat that capsized and the cups and saucers fall down.
Yes, because it hadn't been designed by Matt. You see, had it been designed by Matt, different thing.
Yeah, I think with some magnetic plates and some clever plumbing and a can-do attitude.
I mean,
I think we can make this work.
You see, you've
a can-do attitude and no leftovers.
Yes, obviously.
I have seen something very like it. Well, it was some drunk men in a caravan. But, I'm 35, and I already can't always remember what I went into a room for.
Well, that's bad.
The idea of every time you want to go to another room, you've got to step outside, press the button, watch it rotate, and then you walk back in, and then you go, oh... I've left my keys. Step back outside. Every time it's going to be this. Oh no, I forgot my brolly. Do you see what I mean? I'll stop that for you. And that, incidentally, that's the architect's dream version where everything is magnetic and everything's held down. In the real world, it's going to be this. I've got a kind of mathematical approach to this one, and if only there was somebody around who understood the kind of maths I wanted to go into. I'll move to the genius board. I'll show you.
Go on.
So basically, if you're going to rotate a room, Matt, you need higher ceilings.
Yes.
Right now, most houses say about 3 metre high.
A cube,
but if you start hanging tables from the ceiling, you're going to bang your head.
Yeah.
So let's double it and say a 6 metre room, OK? So if you get a cube of 6 metre dimensions, then for that to rotate, it needs to sit within a sphere. Now, the diagonal from the floor at the front to the ceiling at the back, trust me, it's about 10 metres. So the whole thing needs to sit inside a sphere of 10 metres diameter. But if you just put spheres on the high street, they roll away. So you might as well put that in a cube. So what you've got is a 10-metre cube. And if you're going to have a 10-metre cube, you might as well have lots of rooms. And if you scale it back down to your 3 metre ceilings that you have in a normal house, you could get 12 rooms in there. Or in other words, a house.
Yeah, it's not as much fun, is it?
It's not as much fun unless you live with other people.
You could have a rotate-o-matic remote control, couldn't you?
Oh, no. Now, who'd be in control?
Oh, is that
of the
too far,
remote?
Carol?
It would have to be the boy, wouldn't it? It would be, wouldn't it? Be another remote for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Imagine having a row. Right, that's it. I'm going to the bedroom. And so are you. I don't know. I have to admit, I remain unconvinced. I've got possessions. But Carol, you do seem to be.
Well, I
for this
quite
idea.
like this idea. Maybe not one on each wall. Perhaps just top and bottom would be a good idea.
Is that an acceptable refinement of your idea, Matt?
Well, I mean, it's a step in the right direction.
OK, well, I think I know which way it's going, but we need to get a decision. Carol, rotating rooms, genius or not?
Genius.
You, sir. All right, genius. Our next idea comes from James Fowler, and he's from Nistlebed near Henley-on-Thames.
Dear Genius, how about Bovril as a fizzy drink?
Wow. Carol?
Well, Bovril normally is hot, whereas fizzy, you can't have fizzy hot. Can you, really?
Well, I think you might be able to. This is my idea, the restorative power of liquid meat-based drink, and nobody knows what would happen to it if it were carbonated. I think it might have a sort of a magic potion type effect.
You yourself, James, are saying that it's difficult to imagine what the carbonation would be like. There is a way.
Oh, please, no.
We have, of course, the genius soda stream. And some Bovril. I'll just give it some gas. Now, here's a sentence I never thought I'd say. And I will thank the audience not to be looking for innuendo where there is none. Carol, would you like to taste my fizzy meat juice? You don't have to.
No, I do have to.
You don't have to.
Well, it's... fluid. Fluid beef extract. It's not as bad as you think.
James, it is your idea, obviously. I think you should be sampling this.
Absolutely.
What do you think?
It's absolutely delicious.
I'm just going to explain for people listening on the wireless. James has got his back to the audience, and just from the way his shoulders moves, it was obvious that you did not find that to be delicious. Now, I don't know, is there something sort of childish about this, just the idea that fizzy is better?
Well, absolutely. I think kids would buy it. It'd be in between Dr. Pepper and Sprite, you know, another misunderstood product, but yeah.
Is there anything else you think that could be fizzy?
I hadn't gone that far.
Because we thought custard.
Yeah.
I mean, fizzy custard is already for kids, really. Why not make it more for kids? Make it fizzy.
It's like a sorbet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have to. It's entirely up to you if you want to.
It tastes though it's gone off. You know when things start to go off in the fridge, and they do obviously start to ferment, and it tastes as though it's gone off a bit.
I made some fizzy baked beans just that way the other day. James, would you like some? Again, no obligation. If you'd like some, you can.
Wow.
Which did you prefer?
They're both equally delicious.
I mean, what we've tried to do, really, is take your idea, and we've just seen if there are other things that can be made fizzy, which are better.
That's thoughtful of you.
Which don't already exist, just because, if anything is an obvious competitor and it knocks it out of the water in a way that would prove your idea to not be genius. But I'm actually getting the vibe that of the Bovril and the custard, Bovril seems to be your favourite, genuinely, Carol.
No, custard now.
Custard. What I want to know, Fizzy Bovril, is it genius or isn't it?
Well, James, I must look into your eyes and say, I'm sorry, but no.
James Fowler, I'm sorry, but you're not a genius. But thank you for coming all the same. Let's see what our next potential genius has to offer. He's Dave Cryer, and he's from Huddersfield.
Dear Genius, I've always thought it would be a great idea if we could all take a 15-year retirement period at a point of our own choosing. Then, after retiring, we go back and continue to work until we drop dead. 15 years of retirement right now would give me plenty of time to make it as a writer. Then perhaps I wouldn't have to go back to teaching. I'd be living my dream.
OK. That would mean that OAPs would be working.
Yes.
There are some people who do this already. I believe Noel Edmonds retired after House Party and came back again for Deal or No Deal. So it does happen.
I think your problem here is the 15 years. I think if you said 5, and then you could choose to retire for women, I suppose, at 65, you just add 5 years on. I think that's a great idea. I think 15 years is where you have the problem.
Well, 15 years, I think you just end up with loads of 18-year-olds taking 15 years off. Essentially a PhD. No one's going to play by the system, are they? Would it hold together?
I'm sure it would.
Of course you're sure it would, yes.
And think about the benefits for society. For instance, if you chose to take your early retirement, your flexible retirement, just when you're starting a family, then you could bring up the children, and the old people, the grandparents, would still be working, so they would be bringing money into the family.
Nice.
Yeah.
So children would get brought up by their parents when their parents choose to take the time off.
I think that everyone who's taking this time off, they're basically gambling that they might die young. They're going to regret it when they're 88 and still working. That's... If you work in an office, imagine the queue for the stair lift at lunchtime. Carol, you seem to be...
No, I am absolutely convinced. It's the 15 years, it's the number I have the problem with. I think 5 years is good. I remember in my 30s, I was just exhausted for 10 years. And I think I'm 45 now. I would love 5 years out. Yes, thank you very much. Play a bit of croquet.
OK, Dave, it is looking good. Yeah. I think Carol looks like she's being persuaded. The one thing I will say, 15 years is causing her a problem. Think of it in these terms. Carol Vorderman's got a problem with a number. Are you going to stick with your guns?
Well, I'm willing to agree with Carol that could be an alternative.
Marvellous.
In a way, this speaks to my generation more than others, because we are part of the generation which doesn't have pensions. We are the reason there is a pension crisis in this country right now. Everyone's going, I haven't got a pension. Have you got a pension? No, I haven't got a pension. And if no one gets one, they've got to look after us. But the minute one person breaks the chain and gets a pension, then it's our own fault. So I think we're all sort of linking arms going, no, don't get a pension, don't get a pension. And this is an attempt to solve that problem. Carol, the flexible pick and mix, choose your own pension scheme, is that genius or not?
I think it's absolutely genius.
There you go. Congratulations, Dave Cryer. Let's see if our next idea can convince you, Carol. It comes from Newcastle, as does the brain that hatched it, which belongs to Frank McLaughlin.
Dear Genius, I think they should make parking meters into gambling machines. If every now and then a parking meter gave a jackpot, everyone would want to use them. Then traffic wardens could be employed on other, more motorist-friendly tasks, and parking meters would make more money as people would voluntarily put money in them, whether they were parking or not.
It's popular in the House. I like this, and I can see problems with it as well. You're going to get people reversing into the meters, trying to get the money out, if they're not careful.
Well, there are other ways of implementing this scheme, you see. There are many parking meters at the moment which give you a parking ticket rather than actually putting money into the machine
like
and throwing a little flag up.
Like a pay and display thing?
Yeah. And all of those are numbered, and you could have the occasional one that says, bingo, you've won a prize, call this number. And you could run it rather like the National Lottery.
Good idea.
I can see that working. Now, the ticket makes a lot more sense, because you get something that's redeemable, no one knows you've got it.
That's it, and you have...
Yeah, but it's not as interesting, is it? I mean, what we love, don't we, with the old freak machines is the ding, 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 and then the sound of coins. Doesn't matter how much you win, it's the coins coming out that give you the thrill.
I think it's got to be pitched at the right level so that you've still got to see the main advantage in getting a parking space. You can't let the gambling take over. Otherwise, you're going to have people pulling up to a parking space and thinking, oh, I'm not parking there, it paid out recently. And moving. You need to get people to park, is the incentive, is the main thing, surely.
Well, yes, indeed, but it needn't necessarily be cars. You see, people can park dogs. And you... Well, if you want to go into a shop, what do you do with the dog?
True.
So you can put the dog on a parking meter and you're in with a chance of getting a payout.
Not so convinced.
But now you've reduced the number of parking spaces.
Well, I don't see why you can't have the meter covering a dual purpose, because the dog doesn't take up the space in the road.
You're winning me back.
But anything, surely, that makes us feel a little bit happy. You know, we're on the street and then 2 parking metres down, and I go, hey, well done, mate, that's really good. And then you might start conversation, a bit like in Ireland when they banned smoking. Everybody went outside, they all started talking to each other, all the smokers. They're all getting married. We excuse. We just need that little open door, and parking meter freak machines could be it. I think if you put if you're in central London, it goes for 2 hours, £8. Right,
yeah.
8 single pound coins you have to shove in there. Now, if you can find 8 single pound coins, you're lucky. So you pop those in, but maybe you put one in and you pull the handle, and then it gives you 2 hours. Rather than paying out, perhaps, you see. It pays out in time.
So every time you get there, you put £1 in and it tells you how long you can park for?
Yeah.
Rather than staying for as long as you wanted. As long as I can.
No, but wouldn't you like that? You see, you put £1 in and then you pull a handle and you go, ooh, that's good. I got 45 minutes then. And you'd be chatting to people about that. Guess what I got for £1 today? I got 95 minutes.
I think maybe one of the reasons I'm worried is that I spent my youth in arcades. I was never gambling. I like the change machine. All the thrill of the win, but none of the risk. It was wonderful. That was more exciting. I don't know, but you definitely...
Oh, I'm a big one for this. But I really would like the parking meters it's got to have a handle.
Well, I think I know which way it's going, Frank.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. I think it's good news. I'm going to check officially. Carol, is Frank McLaughlin a genius?
Yes.
Congratulations, Frank. Let's see if our final idea can compete. It comes from Brian McKeown, who has travelled from Oxford.
Dear Genius, we can combat rising sea levels by banning children from throwing stones in the water when at the seaside. Or by catching more whales.
This is one of those things where it should make no sense whatsoever. But no matter how much you think about it, it does. Or am I wrong? Carol, help me, please. What do you think?
Well, it's an Archimedes principle. Right, in an unusual manner.
Yeah.
For sociological environmental good.
Maybe what you should do is you're allowed to throw stones, but for every stone you throw, you've got to drink that much water.
I'm personally responsible probably for a good couple of buckets of stones across my life that I've thrown in the water. So I'd suggest that one thing, rather than drinking water, is we should maybe consider sending the likes of myself, who freely admit to throwing stones in the water, back to the seaside to get those stones out. But not all at the same time.
So what you're really looking is, you want some free trips to the seaside?
I hadn't actually thought of that. That's an upside too, yes.
Yeah. But surely, most of the world is covered in the oceans. I mean, I don't know, is it 6/7 of the world or something? It's meant to be, it's a huge proportion of the world is covered in sea. Those 2 buckets of stones, it doesn't really affect it, does it?
If we ban this stone-throwing behaviour, this will just stabilise the situation immediately. But we do have to do something to then lower the sea levels again, hence the whales.
Yeah. Again, it does make sense. Although I wouldn't want to be the one to explain this to Greenpeace. Well, honestly, we can lower the sea level by killing whales.
It's just an efficiency thing, really. I mean, obviously, large marine mammals, any aquatic species would do. Mackerel, even pilchards, for example. But I think they're unworkable because you'd have to be inordinately accurate with a harpoon.
So you want to encourage whaling because of its environmental benefits and ban the simple, homely pleasure of throwing stones into the sea?
I think if we don't take immediate action, we'll live to regret it, yeah.
If you take all the stones out of the sea and build them up on the land anyway, you're not only lowering the ocean, you're building up the land.
It's called Holland.
Yeah. Yeah, they've done it, yeah.
There are various other things, not just not throwing things in the ocean, but stopping people putting things in the ocean. I've no idea, for example, how many US submarines there are at sea. No. Get them out the water.
Basically, take everything out of the water.
Everything.
That's what you're basically saying, am I right?
Including the water, yeah.
Including the water. Carol, Brian McKeown, genius or no?
Well, I'm afraid I would have to say, regrettably, no to this. I'm sorry.
Oh. It was all going so well, Brian, but then the essential idiocy of the idea came back and bit you from behind now. You came close, but unfortunately, Brian McKeown from Oxford, you're not a genius, but thank you all the same. OK, well, we've heard all the ideas, and Carol, we now need to establish your two favourites so that the audience can choose the eventual winner. What do you reckon?
Now, I'm very taken with the idea of parking metre fruit machines, so I'm putting that forward to the jury. I think your 10-metre cube thing convinced me that rotating ring perhaps should be placed to one enormous side.
Yes.
So I will go with flexible retirement as my second suggestion to the jury.
OK, there you go. In which case, I'd like to ask Frank McLaughlin and Dave Cryer to join me on the stage. Those in favour of flexible retirement? A respectable response, Dave. Parking metre fruit machines? A clear result, that. Frank McLaughlin, you are our genius this evening. There you go. So it's a wonderful trophy. Enjoy it.
Marvellous.
Polish it regularly. And next time you're getting your keys cut, look up at the shelf and think of us. Thank you very much, Frank McLaughlin. Dave Cryer. I'd like to thank Carol Vorderman for being a genius guest, and of course you for listening, but there is just time for a few ideas suggested by tonight's studio audience, which include unleaded pencils, talking traffic lights to help blind motorists, and a déjà vu-ometer, a very simple personal GPS system that will tell you if you really have been somewhere before. Good night.
Genius was hosted by Dave Gorman and featured special guest Carol Vorderman. It was devised by Ali Crockett and David Scott. The producer was Simon Nichols.